Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Steps to Soul podcast. Today's topic: why you should buy an existing business versus starting one from scratch. We're going to cover the benefits, struggles, and rewards of taking the plunge, and what every aspiring entrepreneur should really know and be expected to comprehend at this time if you're going to start this journey. So, Christopher, as an entrepreneur yourself, how excited are you about this topic?
Oh, this is a good one, man. We talk about it all the time. We don't talk about starting businesses, but we talk about buying businesses and
Mm-hmm.
just the advantages. It's been so long since I've started a business. I did start one many, many years ago, and whew,
Mm-hmm.
that is a that is an uphill battle to get where you need to
Yes.
be to have cash flow coming in the door consistently. And so we're going to talk about all that. But yeah, looking forward to this topic.
Absolutely, myself included. For this episode, any of you inspiring business owners, you got to weigh your options. If you want to be an owner, do you buy? Do you start? One thing we're gonna talk about a lot about buying existing businesses. I believe it's smarter. It's a faster way to success, and honestly, a more secure path than starting from zero. And we're going to cover all the metrics on why starting is tough. We're going to cover all the different angles today. But here's the one thing my dad always talked about when he started his company. Two entrepreneurs walk in a room. One buys a profitable business, and one starts from scratch. Guess who has customers, cash flow, and staff day one, right?
Right.
I mean, it's nice to have those securities. You know, Trade offs, yes, you start your own company, it turns into Amazon. Who wouldn't love that, right, Chris?
Mhm.
Be a multi billionaire. But let's be honest, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
And honestly, the startup costs, most people don't realize how much it goes in like just upfront costs and time and headache to get a business started. Whereas when you buy a new business, there's different headaches, but they're what I prefer to think of as more manageable headaches. Owning a business is always going to be tough, whether you start or buy an existing one. There's always the challenges of being an owner. However, I like to make money day one than being negative. So let's talk a little bit about the myths of starting from scratch that people kind of tend to romanticize. I mentioned one, Hollywood glamorizes the startup founder, right? Go watch the Facebook movie. Look at Jeff Bezos. Look at all these great guys start these great companies. Look at Starbucks. Starbucks was founded by a couple who didn't want to expand it. And a new owner bought an existing business and turned it into what you know as Starbucks today, right?
Right.
Like there's a lot of great value in someone who's already got, as we're going to talk about, brand, market presence, history, financials, customers. But let's talk about the reality. 20% of businesses fail in the first year that start up, 50% by year five, you know, and 65% in the next 10 years. Only 25 of business that start make it to 15 years or more for those of you out there listening. Now, I'm not counting the mom and pop, grass cutting businesses on the side hustles. Let's talk real businesses. People who are doing this for a way to make their entire living, not a side hustle, not some e-commerce store, some kids trying to sell products on eBay or Amazon, like a legit real business. What do they face? No brand recognition, no revenue, no infrastructure. Most of the time they become cash starved. They don't have enough capital to get off the ground and survive. And then just the emotional toll of like having never done it before and trying to build a business from scratch. There are so many avenues if you've never done it that just wear you out. So, with all that in mind, let's talk about the top reasons to buy a business. And I'm going to give you the topic, Chris, and I'll let you roll because I know you and I both always talk about this. It's probably the most, if not second most important factor to buying a business: immediate cash flow, existing customers, payroll, and reduce reliance on draining your own funds to make an income. Am I wrong? I mean,
No,
why not buy
absolutely.
cash flow? Why not?
Yeah, day one revenue is the difference between stress and strategy, right? Buyers can
Mm-hmm.
take a salary immediately if they know the cash flow. You buy that existing business, you know whether you can pay yourself 75, 80,000, even 150,000 starting day one. You got debt service because you just bought the business, probably took out a loan to do it, but you got that
Mm-hmm.
comfort of, yes, this is my salary. You have that startup business, it's going to be a while before you even got cash coming in the door, much less paying yourself a salary. So you better have reserves, working capital, and you need to know what that is. And that's the problem with startups. You could have $100,000 on the side ready to go and blow through it in a year, 2 years, because your model doesn't even work. I would go back to your Amazon story.
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurship doesn't always require innovation. Sometimes you
Correct.
just need to buy a business that's producing cash flow, get started, pay yourself, pay your bills. Total difference between startup and buying that existing company.
I agree. And one thing I'd add to that too, besides immediate cash flow, you have equity in something already that you can leverage. When you start from scratch, often there's 100 things you're signing on to get started, and you have nothing to start with, and that is so hard to get. And we'll cover some of those other difficulties. I'm not going to jump ahead here, but let's talk about the next main topic: proven product and a market fit. Look at Starbucks. Great example. A coffee shop in Seattle has a very good coffee product. A great, the model works. This coffee shop makes good money. It's got a good product. Everybody likes it. You've kind of gotten over, hey, do I build a spot here? Do I build a spot there? Which coffee blend do I bring in? They've already got all that lined up in the system, prepared. You're not going through that, hey, do people even want this product? How often do you see people go to Shark Tank? I have a great product idea. I want 5%, $500,000 from my company. And the Sharks go, but you're not making money. You've not proven anything in the market. You've got no systems in place. That's what I don't know how people, not every great idea is going to be a proven business. You said a great point. You're buying something existing. You're buying something there. Why would you go risk $500,000 when you can spend $500,000 and get a $5 million business from the SBA with proven track record, probably double or triple your salary you're making now, plus the ownership benefits? Am I wrong?
No, absolutely. Product market fit, as I like to call it, that's gold. Knowing whether something works or not. I will say most founders that come up with some innovative idea, they spend years trying to answer this question: will people even pay for this? They're testing. Now, if you've got that passion to build something, if that's your drive and you want to be out there selling it, nobody's stopping you. You should start your own business.
I love it.
But if you're looking to be your own operator, just make cash for yourself, be your own boss, there's no reason that you need to create this new invention and bring it out to the marketplace and try to make it work. Those are two totally different things.
You're right. And the risk reward is way different too. And it's okay if you're not an innovator. There are great people who run great companies who aren't innovators. And then there are the mavericks, like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, who've taken products, the Elon Musk of the world. They're both entrepreneurs. They're different types. Not everybody needs to be Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. You can do great with what you have. And one thing my dad always told me, and when you buy like a franchise, you're buying knowledge and you're buying systems. And that's our third topic: establish systems and processes. When you buy an existing company, in theory, and most good companies that sell for better dollar value have a great system in place. We sold one together in northwestern part of the state, a lawn care company. Why was that company so successful? Everything was in the books, on the wall, on the shelf. If I had never done 1 ounce of lawn care in my life and I bought this company, I could walk onto the wall, pull out that book and say, how do I train my field crew? How do I handle selling the equipment? The staff was trained, the systems were in place, and allowed for better scalability, but also the headache, right? I mean, what didn't make that appealing to anybody that came through the door?
Yeah. We talked about cash flow. That's one thing you're buying is immediate cash flow, but you're buying time and structure, right? Everything's already been set up. And what do I mean by time? You don't have to spend this time figuring out how to do this. It's already been done for you. That's what you're buying. And as long as you can leverage that to where you can make the debt service and still make the positive cash flow, there's your time coming back to you right there. A well-run business, what does it include? It often includes the vendors. You've got customers in place. You've got those relationships. And the software has already been integrated. That's huge these days. I know in one of my businesses...
Changing by the minute.
Yeah, exactly. One of my businesses, half my business is that software that we use from a vendor. And so if I were to open another location or franchise my business, I'm providing that software, that knowledge, saying, hey, this is the stuff to use because it will put you where you need to be. And you don't have to spend the next 5 years figuring out how to do all this stuff.
You're not wrong. And those systems, often there's 100 vendors out there. Knowing how to use the right vendor, which ones integrate. We talk about our CRM that we use for our network, finding the right new vendor. You had a previous one, a new one came up. We moved on to it, and it's been great. Those are things that you don't know. And if you're going to start a company, are you going to leverage say you take all your savings to start this company? Are you going to leverage on a vendor you've never even heard from or worked with or have any experience with? That's a big gamble. Man, knowing that I've already got this entire CRM in place, ready to go, that's one less headache. It's already scheduled into the billing. The payments are already set up. You know how much it's going to cost. You know the ups and downs of every vendor. That's great. And that kind of leads to the next spot. Besides just the systems in place. The next big topic is trained team and institutional knowledge. When you buy a business, you're getting, in most cases, a very well-funded and trained team. You're also getting, with the proper structure, the knowledge of the owner. Now, you can't just do a data transfer like a USB plug from the owner to you. But man, having that guy that's been there for 10, 15, 20 years, who's seen just about everything, who wants his baby that he sold to continue on, that's great. That is fantastic. That is almost worth more than you can imagine. You almost can't put a dollar amount on that. And especially in the more specialty trades and specialty businesses, that's a rare amount of knowledge. And if you want to be successful, that's helping you skip the learning curve, right, Chris? What could take you 5 years to learn that knowledge, you're getting in 30 days. That's like getting an MBA in that business. You can't pass that up. And it leads to the next major topic too. Existing businesses are easier to finance, especially with SBA loans. You go to a local bank, want to do a startup, they're going to look at you and go, okay, how many assets do you want to give us? How much do you want to leverage, right? Conventional banks don't like making conventional loans to buy businesses. We've said it 1,000 times on the podcast. We're going to say it again. Good luck. But SBA does. And even for some startup cases, like for example, franchising. What did we just talk about? All the points we just made. Proven model, systems, sources of income. They're looking at it as a proven business model, even if it is a startup. But even for existing businesses, SBA is the most impactful tool to entrepreneurship in the entire world. I will go on record stating that. I talked to one of the biggest Sunbelt offices in Canada, Greg Kells, and he said, I wish we had the SBA in Canada. We don't have that. You can put 10% down and buy an unbelievable business. You allow great people and younger people with capital experience to buy existing business and maintain your economy. I wish Canada would give us that. I mean, how much do we love the SBA, Chris? How great of a tool has SBA been for people to change their lives?
Oh, it's absolutely great. Here's the thing about the SBA. They may have some defaults on their loans. They may loan out to people, and for some reason down the road, they can't make it. But the SBA does not gamble. You and I both know that. They're
No.
going to get their documentation. The financials are going to line up. The debt service coverage ratio is going to line up. Yeah, they can't foresee the future if that business is going to lose its customers or the owner's going to fall apart
Or
or have a
hurricane's going to
divorce.
knock it out.
But they lend on real cash flow, and that's the difference. They don't have to be fully collateralized. You go to your local bank and say, I need a $2 million loan, and I'm going to put down 10%. They're going to say, great. Well, we just need $1.9 million of equity in your home or your IRA, or you got to put up
The third-born child.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, SBA has been great, and that's where you can really, as an entrepreneur or wanting to become an entrepreneur, buy that existing business. The SBA looks at that and says, oh, this has the perfect cash flow to do what you're trying to do. You can cover the debt. You can pay yourself $60,000, $80,000 to cover your house note, your car notes, kids' college tuition, whatever you got to do to live your life. And that's how you make wealth in this country.
That is. It is the biggest jumpstart to changing your social economic status. It really is. And SBA has been a fantastic tool. We can't say that enough. Even though we've had changes we don't agree with, we talked about that a couple podcasts back about the SOP changes. It's still one of the greatest tools out there for entrepreneurship. And if you don't know a lot about it, you should reach out to us if you're a buyer and if you're a seller to understand how much it can impact your business going forward, because that's the mechanism that most people are going to use to purchase a company going forward. So you should understand how it affects both buyers and you as a seller. But our last and final, major reason, which we haven't said yet, is location, location, location. And yes, that does mean digital footprint. Already having that location picked out, especially for certain types of companies, is so important. Yes, there are some home-based, some e-commerce, some, you can get industrial warehouse for certain trades off the beaten path you don't need. But for some places like restaurants and bars and other key industries, location matters. And having an owner that's figured that out, or a game plan of how to pick new locations as they've expanded. My dad told me a great story. He went to college with a guy his age whose dad had gotten to Waffle House early on. Had I think from Lafayette through New Orleans all the way to like Pensacola, I think was the territory. You know how he did his market research, Chris? How he put new locations out there? Yeah. He went and found a McDonald's and a Burger King on the same corner, and he said, and I built on the third corner. I don't do market research, but it was an epiphany. Someone told him, don't do the research. Look at the big boys spending the money. But that's no owner knowledge that someone wouldn't have told you off the street. Most people wouldn't have figured that out on their own. And just talk about the digital footprint. Having good reviews, having a customer base that knows where to find you, how to find you, SEO. We talk about that, how good our SEO is. We're very fortunate. We've done a good job with it. It takes work. In the age where AI searches and Google searches matter, having a proven business with exposure, with link traffic is so important. Starting from scratch, getting to page one of Google, it's a bear, is it not?
Yeah, it could take years, right? Just kind of work that up, and you can go out and hire a specialist, and even with them,
Spend a fortune.
yeah, you're going to spend a fortune, and it's still going to take time, right? They can't put you on just because you pay them $10,000 doesn't mean they can get you on page one the very next day.
Wave the
So
magic wand.
yeah, it's time. It's a time thing.
It is. And with the with marketing expanding to so many different avenues, it used to be you had to be on top of the yellow pages, right? Triple A service instead of A service. Now it's you need to be on Instagram, on different social media platforms, have a website, have digital presence. You have to spend digital marketing to be relevant because you'll get blown by. Starting a business from scratch and creating all these different avenues and ways to advertise, that's tough. I would much rather buy a company that has that system in place. Now you have to update it and maintain it, but trying to figure out from stage one, no thank you. So we've kind of covered all the good reasons to buy a business for starting one. Let's talk about the struggles because we've kind of given all the shiny, fun stuff, right? Let's talk about the nitty gritty that people, I'm sure, have been waiting for us to pounce on us about. Due diligence. Let's start with there. That's tough, man. Due diligence can be such a grind, and it's so necessary to vet the numbers, to go through seller claims. You and I know so often a third of deals die in due diligence. And it's because things aren't written, as we talked about previous podcast episodes. If you're listening, owners, get your books right. I'm going to say it every time we get on the podcast because I believe in that more than anything else. And as a new soon to be business owner, that's a hard concept, due diligence, because you've never actually maybe run through books by yourself before. We've recommended you get people to help you, but I mean, how daunting can due diligence be, Chris? I mean, I'll let you kind of dive in a little because I've done it before too with you, and there's days I'm pulling my hair out, even just doing our basic due diligence, yet alone doing a full audit due diligence of a company when you're purchasing it.
Yeah, I'd say for a new buyer, you want to find out pretty quickly in the process, how clean are these books? Is the owner running everything, his whole personal life through this business and expensing fuel and insurance, and he's wanting all that added back? Because now you have to verify, that insurance payment that he claims was health insurance or a life insurance policy. You really got to check that out, because if you just take his word for it that he did $40,000 on health insurance and $20,000 on an employee life insurance policy, you really got to check those things out. And that takes time, right? You got to go ask him for that invoice, and you got to verify it and look
And
on the
hope they
bank
can
statements.
find it.
So ideally, you're buying a business for the first time with very little of that. If that's your goal, is to have clean set of books, owners not running things through it, you can look at it. I would still advise you to hire a CPA or some kind of Q of E firm that we've talked about here recently.
Yes.
Is like, let them line up the bank statements to what's in QuickBooks or whatever accounting software they're using. Make sure those match up. Where are the variances? What are they saying is an expense? Is it an actual expense? How likely is that to be an expense going forward? Is the revenue consistent? Did they make themselves a loan and they call it that? And then here's the big one. I've got owners that say they pay themselves. I always ask this question. I'll talk about this. I had it yesterday. Guy says he pays himself $180,000 a year. So here I'm thinking $180,000 add back. I look at the P&L or the tax return. It says owner's compensation was $75,000. So I said, we got $105,000 variance here. What's the difference? Well, I just take it out of the account. Are you talking about a distribution?
Very different things.
Yeah, whatever. Well, we're talking about a multiple. This is a big business. We're talking about a multiple of 5.5 on this business. So you just kind of skewed the valuation, maybe $500,000. So
but it matters.
It's kind of important to know this stuff. But yeah, so clean books also means, I think by clean, we ought to clean that up of what we're talking about. It's like how much stuff is actually flowing through this that is not authentic, or is not to the operation of the business. What is the owner running through this, and are they actually reporting revenue? You're going to find financials a lot these days where everything's mostly in cash for smaller business, right? Cash basis. You'd love it to be an accrual basis. You'd love to know that when that money was earned, that's when it was reported. But that's right. It's feasible. It's not feasible for most business owners. It takes a whole lot of another system and level of tracking that stuff. So kind of back to your question of due diligence, the cleaner the books, the easier it is to buy that company, the less time you have to spend, the messier it is. You may want to stay away from those, honestly, as a first time buyer of business if you're not used to that.
Absolutely. And I think you made a great point about your time with using QV firms to help that diligence. That's the time that you spend looking at all the other key points. And we're going to talk about those right now. Culture fit. Do you mesh with this business? I've had a lot of guys say, I'd love to buy any business making 500,000 cash flow. If you've never run a restaurant in the front of the house, you don't, and you go to your home at 5 o'clock after work every day, you don't want to work till 10 o'clock at night running a restaurant. I promise you don't.
Yeah.
The good and the bad. You talk about using the QV firm to look at the financials for you. That's your time to go look for the good and the bad, because you're going to inherit that good and bad. You can't always change those factors before you get the business. There's things you're not going to understand or know, or the owner might even realize they're good and bad that it's affecting him because he's never done those roles. But as a new owner, you're diving into every single ounce and inch of that business, and you're finding little cracks in the crevice and saying, man, I didn't realize that was a problem. I'm going to go in and fix that issue. But to the owner, it doesn't matter because it's funding their lifestyle and they're already checked out. And our final point was, but good buyers hire smart advisors to mitigate the risk. And you highlighted that too. And I'm glad you said that. If you're going to buy a business, use a broker, use somebody to give you some things to look out for. One, to structure your deal so you actually get the deal done and don't waste money and time. But two, to help prepare for the sale. As a buyer, you're going through a very long journey, and having someone who can help guide you on the steps and the proper way to do it will save you money, hopefully get the deal you want done. But also, we all have so much mental energy in our life to use. Don't burn it all out doing all the minor little details wrong. And then when it's time to do a deal, you don't have it in you. Because if you can't do that, you're definitely not going to want to start something, I can promise you. That's a whole different animal. So kind of leads to our next kind of talking point, the reward of buying a business. You're buying time and opportunity. We said earlier, you skip the infrastructure stage, the 6 months to a year for startup. We talked to a company that may want to sell right now here in the local area. They signed a lease in January, couldn't get open until June because of build-out issues. They've been paying a lease for 6 months and we're not even open. Talk about sunk money, right?
Yeah, that's gone.
That's gone. On top of that, if you have a 3-year lease, you've wasted 6 months of that lease and not generated anything to cover that cost, and you just sunk money into a hole. That I would never want to do that. Just personally, that would make me so angry. You're not getting that money back.
I see lease build outs on balance sheets all the time.
Oh gosh,
right?
yes.
And it's like it's on the asset side, right? I don't honestly understand. I guess I'd dive into the financials, but I don't understand why it's on the asset side as if you're ever going to get that back. I understand you spent the money.
Yes,
I
see that time and time again.
Yeah, that money's gone. Somebody, if you build a business, you get cash flow, it's still worth the multiple of cash flow. You're never getting that build out back. Yes, maybe it's helping you generate that cash flow, but you're not going to get the multiple of cash flow for your value of your company. And then on top of it, plus this $250,000 we spent to put the walls in the place because we were the first tenant in this new building. It's like
congratulations. No, I hate to sound so coarse about that, but I've had people tell me, I spent $1 million in build out 2 years ago. I'm like, but you're only generating $400,000 to $500,000 in cash flow. Someone's not going to pay you $1 million plus what the value of the business is generating, plus all these extras. It doesn't make sense. They can go down the street, get a lease space, spend half the money on the build out, and be in operation soon and have not spent $2 to $3 million. Now, am I making an argument against our case here? Yes, but that's where owners have to be realistic too, and that's also part of the process, But the biggest thing buying your time is you're starting day one running. We talked about ownership, the transition. You've got the team in place. You're not sitting there day one going, how do I learn to work the POS system and ring a customer that walks in the door? You've got people doing that. You can sit there and sit back and learn and watch and observe and absorb all that knowledge and training. And if you've had previous business experience, whether maybe not ownership, but as a manager or in a certain executive position, you can translate that and bring that knowledge. And you can now, hopefully, if you've got a background that fits it, grow that business. Instead of starting from day one trying to get to positive cash flow, you've already got, like you said, you've got positive cash flow already because you bought a company. You're paying down debt service, but can you scale it? Can you improve it? Do you have funds now you've saved up from buying the business that you would have spent on startup to acquire it? But then you can inject capital and start growing that company and grow your equity and get a much greater ROI return than starting from scratch, hoping to be there in 10 years. You could be that same position in 2 years. Take it for what it's worth. That's my opinion.
No,
But
that's a great point. Is that you can take if you've got extra cash on top of, let's say you put that 10% down on that $1 million business, you put 100,000, but you had 300,000 that you could have started a company with. Now you get an extra 200,000. If you can find a great way to put that cash into your existing business after you've identified a open opportunity, basically,
mhm.
to make more cash, to maybe you need to buy more equipment that you're going to rent out, or you're going to buy equipment that's going to
Trucks on the
bring
road
in,
to service
bring in more
customers.
customers. That is the perfect place because you're getting immediate return on investment, not waiting. You're not having to invest that, go out, find clients and do all that stuff. You've already got the clients. They're coming to you. They just want more things from you. So now you can open those opportunities up even further.
And you said the key word, if you have the money, and then you forgot to add the annotation, if the wife will let you spend it. Because we all know how our wives are. And if I told my wife I was just throwing through the money, she'd look at me like, are you nuts?
See, when you get
One
to
thing
my
we
age,
didn't
you just
mention.
stop asking. When you get to my age, you just stop asking.
Yeah, I should learn to ask forgiveness later, act first, but I have yet to learn that
Yeah,
hard lesson in life.
yeah, you'll learn.
But I will say one thing I forgot to mention that brought up a second point in my head that I really want to touch on. When you buy an existing business, especially with SBA 10% down, often you don't have to bring in outside investors to own equity of your company. When you start up and you need more and more funds, you have to leverage equity for cash. Look at Shark Tank. You buy an existing business and you can afford it yourself, you control your own destiny and you control your own equity growth. When you have to go out and try and start a company up and you don't have any money, you have to raise funds, you're giving away equity. You're never going to have to eventually pay someone one to get it back, which costs more money down the road. And you could say in theory that's the same for an SBA loan with a buyer, but you've already got cash flow coming in. You can start you can structure that in. When you start with an equity deal from ground up, the owner's going to want their full return and they're going to wait for it.
Yeah.
So in theory, buying an existing business with the right setup, especially using SBA, you're not having to leverage any equity with anybody else, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful way to grow your wealth.
Yeah, those equity deals can get ridiculous too. I've had several where I've run into this scenario where you're not just, let's say you get somebody that they buy 20% to help you out. You're paying them profit every year, they're 20% ownership. Sometimes they're even set up like this, where you're paying them back as a loan for their 20%,
Yep.
and then you still owe them 20% when you sell the company or do something you want to buy them out. It's like it's literally loan sharks almost. Like I got to pay you almost in triplet.
You.
Yeah, it's triplicate. I got to pay you on profit.
And then if you got to get a loan to pay them off, you're paying 3 times back to get what you should have had.
Yeah, yeah.
So careful about those out there, guys. If you ever run into a situation, give us a call. But you're not wrong, Chris. And speaking of things we were just giving some tips on, let's give some broker tips here for first-time buyers because these are something that I always have a passion for. And I say this, don't buy on passion. Buy what fits. Don't look at just cash flow. Look at systems and teams and what makes sense for you. If you call me saying, I want anything over 500,000 SDE, I'm going to say, you're not serious. Because you don't have a passion for the business you want to buy. I would hope you would. But you don't want everything at 500 cash flow. We've sold people who go in and clean up porta potty businesses. I know you don't want to get dirty and covered in shit. Excuse my language, but it's true. If you're a white collar guy behind a desk, you don't want to go out there and do that work. So don't pretend like you want that $200,000, $300,000 SDE business. You're not ready to get dirty. Don't be afraid to buy businesses that you don't know. And I say that, you should have a background to apply. It's okay to learn a new business, but make sure your experience lines up with if you can scale it, and 2, do you think you can absorb that? For example, if you've never done HVAC before work and you don't have a mechanical contractor license, you probably shouldn't buy an HVAC company where the employee holds the license and holds your fate in their hands. Now, could you maybe you're a seasoned executive and you're good at marketing. Could you go buy a promotional products business where maybe you don't know the ins and outs of promotional products, but you understand marketing and you understand how to scale and grow. And now you've got a base of customers and how to reach them more. That's a good overlap. Yes, it's a new industry, but you can apply your skill set to it and grow it. There's tons of businesses like that. But you have to be willing and open to listening to brokers. Because here's the biggest thing I'll tell you too. If you're looking to buy a business or starting one, you can start a business anytime, anywhere you want. Pick exactly the niche product you want. Just keep in mind, when you go to buy a business, you're buying what's on the market. And that can vary what inventory is out there, what availability, and as some of a drawback, what the interest rates are. So understand all those other factors do conclude what's available. But don't be afraid to pull the trigger when the right one comes up. And I say that. You have to have the stones to pull the trigger. And if you don't have that negative committed capital, don't go out venturing. Because once you've told a broker 4 times that's not the right fit, meh, if I find little bitty things wrong, you're going way down our list because you've now shown me you're not looking at good detail. You're finding excuses and you're afraid to pull the trigger. You're big talk, no game. You don't have to buy anything that I show you. I'd rather you be 100% right before you make an offer anything that we show you. But know what you understand the deep down what you really want and explain that to us so we can put stuff in front of you that makes sense. No broker who's helping represent a seller is just going to hand over your financials to go audit because you feel like looking at 25 businesses and you're going to pick the right one. That is not the way to go about doing it. Narrow the list down, get some parameters, and work with us. Because we may not have anything in those parameters today, but we can say, hey, I know Jonathan is looking for a staffing company in this range. We may not get the exact fit, but when it comes up, be prepared to act. Right? I mean, I can't say it any clearer than what I just said, Christopher.
No, you nailed it. I will say exactly that. I've got guys that ask me all the time about my oil and gas business listing that I got right now. We've had hundreds and hundreds of inquiries on it. First question is, do you have oil and gas experience? And half of them say no. And if that's private equity, yeah, sure, maybe I get it. You guys want to get into that
operator.
Yeah, you want to get into that sector, you're going to find somebody. But if you're an individual and you don't have oil and gas experience and you're reaching out about an oil and gas business just because you see it makes $1.3 million in cash flow, you're probably not the good fit for that business. These guys have been in this business. The owners have been in it their entire lives. And that's the experience they have, and that's what they need to make this profit. You come in as new guy, it's just not a good fit. And so I ask them to explain why they're looking at it. And half the time I don't get answers back. And then when I do, it doesn't really line up with real world experience in buying this business. So to your point, find something that works for you, something that you can explain why it would be a good fit, and don't just chase cash flow. It's not a good look for buyers if you're going to continue this journey, because brokers will, I wouldn't say we blacklist you, but I like your point. You'll move further down on the list. You're not my top priority to find a business for if you've looked at 10 before and said no on the first thing that comes along, because, first red flag pops up.
No, you're right. And I know that sounds harsh to people listening, but our job is to help the seller sell the company. And they don't want everybody, Tom, Dick, and Harry, looking at their books just because they're interested. They want to go through practice sessions with your books. That's their proprietary information. That's not something you practice with. You want to practice, go to MBA school, go to business school. This is not the place to practice. And I think buyers need to understand that. Yes, you're asking, but the seller's giving you a lot of proprietary information. So if you're not 100% serious and it fits what you're looking to do, don't treat it like, oh, it's a piece of paper, I read it, on to the next one. This isn't speed dating, for lack of a better comp. You need to really know what you're looking for. Yes, you need to get exposure to find what's out there, but you're lucky. You're in the modern era. You can go on internet platforms and see hundreds of businesses for sale and get a ballpark idea. That doesn't mean click on 50 of them, because I promise you, that's not going to work for you. You're going to waste more of your own time. We talked about saving time and effort. Now you're burning the same hole the entrepreneur is trying to start a company, but you spent 3 years looking. Never begrudge anybody for looking for the right one and taking their time. I will stress that. I am not saying you have to look at something, but please do your homework. Because when you buy this company or a business, you have a lot of work ahead of you. Be prepared for 60, 70-hour weeks, because you are now in charge. It is now your responsibility to your family, to the workers you just took over, and to the legacy of that former owner to maintain this business and make it better. And if you're not committed to doing that and putting in serious hard work, do not start this journey. Do not waste everyone's time. Just don't. That's a tip. That's my final tip. This is not to scare anybody off. And if you want something without those headaches, maybe consider a franchise. There are a lot of great franchises out there that give you the systems and methods in place to help you get started if you don't want to take the full plunge of a privately owned company like that. That's fine. There's a lot of great franchises. I'm just going to ask you to do your diligence, call as many franchisors on the FDD that they give you, and understand your market. Just because Subway did great on College Drive in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, does not mean Subway is going to do great on Highway 22 in Springfield, Louisiana. You're not going to get the same numbers in a town an eighth of the size of Baton Rouge on a major highway market with traffic 24/7. Use common sense, people. Use that. I'm going to stress that. Use common sense. But there are great franchises out there. Some I wouldn't touch, some I would. We could have that's actually a great topic down the road, Chris. Let's do an episode on franchising, all the tips and tricks, because we've sold a lot of resales over the years. One of the biggest preferred resale vendors in the country for a majority of franchises. Why? Because we sell them as a business and we understand the value there. And also, I own a franchise, so I got a little insight for all y'all out there. So stay tuned for that episode. That was a really good teaser, Chris. I should do that more often, guys. I'm sorry. I failed you, my listeners. However, though, final part I'll leave here is, and I'll let you add some words too, Chris, because I've talked a lot today, and that's my fault. I'm a talker. The biggest change in your life you can make is to be your own boss. My dad always told me this, rest in peace. Being your own boss is going to make you crazy some days, but the rewards you're going to have, the financial freedom and the ability to be with your family when you want to be with your family. Yes, you're on call 24/7. Don't deny that. But the financial reward it gives you to live your life, it outweighs every single headache you're going to have. And I would dare to say, Chris, I'm speaking for you too in that regard.
No, absolutely. What are people doing, even starting a business or buying business? What are they absolutely looking for? Yeah, they're looking for cash and all that, but they're looking mostly for freedom. Yeah, control and freedom. They want to get out from working from this guy or that woman or whoever. They want to own their own destiny. They want to control their time. And I will say this, freedom doesn't require reinvention. You don't have to be innovative. Often just requires the courage to take that next step. Try to make something better. Buy that company. Make it better. You can't buy that company and keep it the same way it is because costs are going to increase. Insurance is going to go up.
Eventually, you got to make changes. The market, the world changes.
Yeah, you got to make changes. You got to make it better if you want to buy a company. It doesn't have to be huge changes, but you got to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to own your own time, you want to build wealth and take control of your life, buying a business is probably the fastest way to do it. Leverage 100%. That SBA. Take the advice that we're giving you of how to do this and start researching that if you hadn't already. If you're truly interested in owning a business, start looking at SBA. What's that require? Reach out to us. I'm happy to talk to a buyer about no business in particular if you just want advice on how do I do this, and then start the process.
That's right. We'd rather educate and help you because we want to see small businesses stay around this country. I find that a passion project. I find no greater, enjoyment in this job. And my dad said the same words. The psychological enjoyment of seeing somebody who worked all their life to build a business, even if it's 10 years, 20 years, get to pass it on, help someone keep their job, people keep their job, and maintain it part of your community. A lot of these businesses you've frequented. We all need small businesses like ours to make our economy grow. And that's not some patriotic speech. I'm waving the flag here. Your community's built it's the strongest as weakest link. And small businesses are the foundation of your local community. Unless you want to rely on the Walmarts and Amazons of the world, which I don't want to, it matters. So you're doing yourself a service, your community service, and honestly, you're helping benefit yourself. And a friendly reminder, you can always sell the business. Get into it 10 years, you want to do something, sell it. But now you know what to do. You know how to, you bought one, you know what a buyer's going to look for. You know how to get a return on your investment. That's awesome. We've helped a lot of people buy a business, and then 10 years they call us, say, hey, we bought it, we loved it, we want to do something new, we're ready to sell it. And they made a return, plus they lived a very good lifestyle out of it. Life only gives you one shot. That's not a bad way to live it. And on that note, we will wrap this episode up. We appreciate all of you for listening today. I'm Brandon Bourgeois. That is Chris Sater. As always, if you need to speak to us, reach out to us. We are here to help you. We wish you nothing but the best of luck, and we will see you next week with another great topic. Y'all take care.